During her junior year of high school, Spinster dated a guy, Tollop, who was very sweet and loving. At first. After a few months, they began to grow apart. She tried messaging him multiple times, but he never answered. One night, Spinster's neighbors were being loud, so she went over to see what was going on. When she knocked on the door, nobody answered. So, she quietly opened the door and found Tollop fucking her neighbor. After noticing Spinster and her look of disgust, Tollop grabbed his clothes and smashed through a window. The neighbor ran into the kitchen while Spinster stomped out of the house.
When Honey Bits was in high school, she and her crush Ursa went on a trip to Disneyland for a choir competition. Ursa loved roller coasters, but Honey Bits was terrified of heights. To impress Ursa, Honey Bits, she took 3 times her normal dose of anxiety pills. She figured this would counteract her fear of heights, but all it did was make her really sick. Honey Bits had overdose symptoms all day. Her body was sweaty, she couldn't stop shaking, but she still braved the roller coasters just to sit next to Ursa. Ursa knew Honey Bits was trying to impress her, so she held her hand to get her through the symptoms. They ended up having a great day, and they've been together ever since.
One time, Dolan was staying over at his brother's house. That night, he heard someone shouting, so he poked his head out of his room to investigate. His brother Zaragamba was having an epic argument with his wife. Dolan listened in for a bit and discovered they were fighting about toilet paper. Zaragamba's wife was furious that Zaragamba had hung the roll of toilet paper the wrong way. She demanded that he go into the bathroom and turn it the right way, but Zaragamba refused, so he's banished to the couch for the night.
One time, when Doopy was young, she was on a train with her mom. While she looked out the window, Doopy saw the reflection of a person who looked exactly like her. The person's mom looked like her mom, and it turned out they had the same name and interests. Later that day when they arrived at their city, Doopy noticed that the person's family looked just like hers, even though the person was actually a boy. 2 years later, Doopy and her doppelganger saw each other again on the same train.
Helbin was left with a babysitter while his parents went out with some friends. Even though he was only 8 at the time, he knew quite a few swear words. Although he would always say them, he never got caught. Until that night. He tripped over his younger brother's toys and slammed his knee against the tile floor. He screamed, "Son of a bitch!" His babysitter heard what he said and brought him to the bathroom. Instead of the normal washing his mouth out with soap punishment, she made Helbin take a small bite out of the bar and leave it in his mouth for a few minutes. She even made him swallow some. Helbin wasn't able to sleep that night.
When Ghost Toast was in the 4th grade, he had what could only be described as a substitute teacher from hell. At first, she acted like this sweet old lady, but after a week, her true nature came out. Every day, she taunted students, slammed tables, and yelled, "Are you all deaf?" One day, Ghost Toast's classmate had had enough, so he said,
"Shut up, you old bitch!"
The teacher ominously told him to come back to the classroom after he had eaten his lunch. When Ghost Toast and his friends returned to class after lunch, they found the once brave kid crying in a corner. He had bruises all over him and looked like he'd gotten into a fight. The principal soon walked in and announced that the substitute from hell wouldn't be teaching there anymore. Apparently, she had spanked this poor student with a ruler and forced him to write, "I'm a dumb butt," on all of his work. When he refused, she kicked him in the stomach and slapped him repeatedly. Ghost Toast is glad he managed to stay off this psycho's radar.
The dumbest thing that Salty Squid ever experienced was when he was at a work site in Arizona. He went there on a senior trip as his school was heavily involved in restoring the ecosystem in the northern part of the state. One day, his friend had to use the bathroom, so before she went off to go, everyone told her to make a hole and use it. About 10 minutes later, she ran back to the camp with her pants down, naked from the waist down because she forgot to pack underwear. What happened was, she found a pre-made hole and decided to use it. Then she began to hear a rattle. When she looked, she realized there was a rattlesnake den and ran away.
When Melissa was young, she used to chew on fresh tree branches from the tree next to her house. For some reason, at the time, they tasted really good, and she remembered them having a really good texture to chew on. Melissa would grab a piece with really green leaves and just chew on it, and when the leaves fell, she wouldn't eat it because it didn't taste as good.
One time when Helbin was 10, he was at a barbecue with his mom. One guy had a bit too much beer and started doing some sort of karate routine. Helbin didn't even know what it was supposed to be, but he went to check it out anyways. All he heard was a yell of, "Be gone, demon child!" before getting karate chopped right in the face. Helbin found the guy the next morning, sleeping on a roundabout.
Dolan slashed a guy's tires on his truck because he complained that Dolan's go-kart was too loud and threatened to have it impounded if he didn't stop riding it. So that night, Dolan followed the man home, and after he went to sleep at around 2 a.m., Dolan walked up to the truck and stabbed him, but he thought the man hurt him because he came out with a freaking gun. So Dolan booked it to the woods and he had to climb back into his window.
In high school, Emoji had a group of friends who were real downers. They were always talking about how bad life was treating them. If Emoji or any of her friends had a bad day, the downer friends would let everyone know they'd had a worse one. It got to the point where these downer friends were practically boasting about how shitty and unlucky their lives were. They would have competitions over who had the saddest life. But the thing is, they wouldn't even listen to each other's stories. They'd just keep interrupting each other, arguing back and forth about whose life was worse.
Zaraganba and his friends were once practicing parkour in a state park one afternoon. One of his friends noticed how good Zaraganba was and told him he should try doing parkour on top of a building like they do on the internet. So for some reason, they decided to go to the tallest building in the city, catch the elevator to the top floor, and stand out on the edge. Zaraganba looked over the edge. He must have been 500 feet up. He grabbed the side of the building and then dangled his whole body over the edge. When he came back to safety, his friends were shocked. They didn't think he would actually do it. He never did it again though. It was insanely dangerous.
When Honeybits was 6 years old, she went to a gardening store with her mum. She was having a great time wandering down the aisles, checking out the seed packets. When she found something she liked, she turned to show her mum, but her mum wasn't there. She panicked and ran into the next aisle. She saw a woman who looked like her mum and was wearing the exact same dress. Honeybits ran up to her and hugged her from behind. When the woman turned around, Honeybits saw that she was just some random stranger. Honeybits screamed, which made everyone in the store look at her. Her real mum rushed over and Honeybits realized her mistake. We've all been there.
When Dean was 6, his parents got him a babysitter who ended up running late. Knowing his babysitter was going to show up at any minute, Dean's parents decided to leave anyway. Being home alone, he just sat in the living room staring at the wall. All of a sudden, he heard the gate to their backyard rattle. Dean got up and looked through the sliding glass door that also led into the backyard. There he saw a homeless man, completely naked. The man pissed in the swimming pool, then went on the trampoline and took a massive shit on it. It was only when the babysitter drove up the driveway when the man hopped over the fence and was gone. After that night, Dean never saw him again.
When Pringle was 5, he and his family were in Arizona, visiting a crater. It was huge, and there was no railing to prevent anyone from falling in. They took a tour, and when it had finished, they were heading back to the gift shop when Pringle decided to start running. His mom started running after him, trying to catch him, when he slipped and almost fell over 100 feet to his death. Luckily, his mom caught him just in time. The tour guide watched the whole thing, almost having a heart attack. If it weren't for his mom's quick thinking, he wouldn't be here today.
Emoji had just finished watching an anime marathon and was getting ready to go to bed. It was a stormy, rainy night, and lightning flashed in the sky. As he brushed his teeth, he looked out his window to find a white Labrador fast asleep at the base of a tree. He went outside to call out to it, but when he looked out, he saw nothing. So, he scurried back upstairs to continue with his bedroom routine. He looked out the window again, and there was the dog, sleeping. The creepy thing is, the next morning on the news, a white Labrador had been found slaughtered in the backyard of a house nearby. And so for the next few nights, the ghost of the dog continued to reappear, sleeping peacefully next to the tree stump.
Ghost Toast never did it himself, but his father told him about how 2 kids cheated in class in the 70s. The 2 kids would always buy size 15 white shoes before every test. They would write the answers on the bottom of their shoes and sit cross-legged so they could see the answers written on the bottom of the other one's shoe. If they were believed to be cheating, they would put their feet on the ground and ask the teacher to prove that they had a cheat sheet.
After getting her hair cut, Mimi went to a store with her mom. In one of the aisles, a bigger girl grabbed her hair and pulled her to the front of the store. She didn't get too far because Mimi's mom stepped in front of her and asked, "Excuse me, what are you doing with my daughter?" It was then that the girl looked at Mimi, and then at a laughing girl dressed exactly like Mimi with the same haircut. They were sisters, and the younger one was being mischievous by running between the aisles and getting her older sister mad.
One day, Hellbent was at a giant party that his fraternity was hosting. He'd gotten completely hammered playing Edward 40 Hands, and eventually saw who he thought was his girlfriend. Turns out it was just a random girl, but he told her he loved her and he had to go on an adventure. He kissed her as dramatically as possible and then ran from the room triumphantly. The next morning, Hellbent woke up in the river at the college's nature center with a huge bruise on his face. He made his way back to his frat house, where everybody was scared because a crazy homeless man was somewhere on campus. A group of students had found him in the woods, slurring his speech and talking as though he were in a Shakespeare play about how there were monsters in the woods which required brave adventurers to combat them. One of the guys in the group had punched the man in the face, but the man just ran off yelling something about wolves in the wool of sheep, and then he jumped in the river. Hellbent froze when he realized that the drunken, crazy homeless man was actually him, but nobody ever found out it was him.
During his last vacation, Hellbent went hiking to the Everest base camp. He had just left Gorakshep, the last town before base camp, when a 7.8 magnitude earthquake hit Nepal and the mountains started to rumble. If that wasn't bad enough, the very tail end of the avalanche crashed right past him. If he had been a little further down the trail, the full force of the avalanche would have hit him, killing him instantly.
One time, Gurgak wanted to talk to a person next to him in school. Unfortunately, Gurgak couldn't get his attention, so he thought it would be a good idea to stomp his feet while screaming, "Raisin bread makes my inside feel weird." He also screamed, "Potato bread is yellow because of the sunny sun." And because he was indoors, his screams and foot stomps echoed. It certainly got the other person's attention, maybe a little too well.
I've seen a lot of crazy things happen at conventions, and I have multiple memories of me saying over and over, "I can't believe that just happened." But one of the biggest, weirdest, coolest things I've seen was a couple actually get married in Bleach cosplay at MetroCon in Florida. I've never seen anybody get married at an anime convention before, and at the time I was a little confused and was kind of worried that they would regret their decision. But now that I'm older, I kind of realized that they probably really loved anime, and anime might have been what brought them together, and that's just so sweet to me. Weird, yes, but sweet. I hope they're having a happy marriage.
One time, my friend Melissa got on a train, only to find some dude wearing a Batman costume running up and down the carriage shouting, "Choo-choo, choo-choo." He didn't get off the train. He just kept running up and down the carriage with his arms in the air screaming, "Choo-choo, choo-choo." Melissa thought he was drunk, but I think he was on something a little bit stronger.
Doopy had a crush on a boy that she was friends with. One day, she and her dad pulled up to the convenience store where her crush worked part-time. For reasons unknown, Doopy's dad pretended to be an extremely flamboyant, very drunk homosexual, and hit on Doopy's crush. Doopy and her crush were both completely mortified. Doopy's friend-zoned crush didn't really want out of the friend zone after that.
One night, Tolop was hanging out in an arcade, playing some Dance Revolution. He was approached by some people who wanted to hire him as a foot double. A pop-punk band called The Starting Line was filming a music video, wanted to film him playing as part of the video, capitalizing on the game's popularity at the time. The footage was never actually used in the video, but they gave Tolop $50 and a copy of the single.
Snoopy was at home texting her friend when she got a call from an unknown number. She answered it and it sounded like a guy much older than her. The guy said, "Hey Claire, I wanted to meet up later. When's a good time?" Snoopy explained to the man that he must have the wrong number and that she wasn't Claire. He apologized and ended the call. 3 minutes later, he called again, but said in a creepy tone, "I'm gonna murder you and your entire family and then cover you all in shaving cream." Needless to say, Snoopy hung up and didn't come out of her room for a while. He kept calling till around midnight, then stopped and never called since.
When Ladybot was in the 7th grade, she wanted to ask out a girl that she liked, but Ladybot didn't know if this girl liked other girls. So she went up to her with a taco and a hot dog at lunch and said, "Which do you prefer?" The girl picked the taco, and Ladybot meant to reply with, "Since you like that taco so much, why don't you go out with a real one?" Then she was going to wink. Instead, she got flustered and said, "So tacos, huh?" and winked with both eyes, one slower than the other. Ladybot didn't get that date.
In 5th grade, Ladybot was bullied because of her friend Sharpie, who, well, Sharpie loved Ladybot. When Ladybot told another girl about it, the girl told the entire school. The next day, a group of girls followed Ladybot and Sharpie into the bathroom, where they pulled off all of their clothes. Then, they started hitting the naked Ladybot and Sharpie with a Bible. When Sharpie was knocked unconscious, the girls put toilet water on her. After that, Ladybot and Sharpie were left in the bathroom. Because they were naked, they didn't leave the bathroom until after the school had closed. Sharpie took Ladybot to her house where she let her borrow some clothes, and they never told anybody what happened that day.
When Robo was younger, she always found physics interesting. She was constantly doing experiments with gravity. Her friend Ghost Toast wafted over one day and they decided to do an experiment. They went into the backyard with a timer and a record-keeping diary and dropped a golf ball onto another golf ball to see which way it would bounce. This was the experiment. They were so dedicated that they spent 13 whole days doing this over and over. The worst part was that they never got any remarkable results and ended up wasting over half a day playing with balls.
The scariest thing Pringle ever witnessed was something outside of his bedroom window. Because he's into paranormal stuff, Pringle thought,
Oh, maybe it's a banshee. I guess I'm gonna die.
but then he fell asleep and his dream was that he died and went to hell. After about an hour, Pringle woke up and saw eyes all around his room. He blinked and they also blinked, and then a demon thing whispered something in his ear. Pringle was pretty sure it was in Latin, and that's his tale of sleep paralysis.
When Princess Proton was younger, she had a few health issues. Instead of taking her to see a doctor, her mum decided that Proton had really low blood pressure and that she needed to eat 10 bags of potato chips every day. Being a kid, Princess Proton didn't argue. Who doesn't love potato chips? Her mum told her that she needed more salt in her diet and that potato chips were really good for her condition. Now, I'm not a doctor, but that seems kind of insane.
When MKLM was in 7th grade, he found his first girlfriend, and he was really happy. But after only 2 weeks of dating her, she had some other girls tell him it was over because her actual boyfriend was getting mad. It turned out she had already been dating the other guy for a year now. She only, quote, dated MKLM because she felt sorry for him because, he didn't have a girlfriend. He was hurt, but he moved on and he found a new girlfriend just a month later. Sometime later on, MKLM was approached by his first girlfriend. She said she wanted to marry MKLM, so her unborn child would have a dad. The biological father had moved to a different state. MKLM politely declined the offer.
One time, MKLM went on a school trip. On the ride back, the bus stopped at a service station for a 45-minute break. Since he would get motion sickness on long drives, MKLM bought 2 packs of mints. He noticed that one of his teachers saw him purchase the mints and gave him a little grimace. MKLM thought nothing of it. After about an hour of being on the road, the teacher saw him with only 1 pack of mints. She asked MKLM where the other pack was, and he said that he had eaten them. Furious, the teacher gave him 2 detentions, confiscated his other pack, and ate them.
One day while working at my job at a clothing store, a woman walked up to me and asked for my help. I asked her what was wrong, and she presented to me a green rag that was sealed in a plastic wrapper. She asked me, "How am I supposed to know what color this is before I buy it?" I didn't know what she meant. I looked at the green rag. I looked back at her. She gave it to me. I looked it over, and I said, what do you mean? She then got really angry and repeated herself. She said, "How am I supposed to know what color this is?" I just looked down at the rag a final time, kind of rolled it over in my hand and said, it's green. She then snatched the package out of my hand, glared at me, and said, "Thank you for your help," in a really snobby way, and she stormed off. I don't know. Maybe she was totally colorblind, or something.
Pringle had been dating his girlfriend for 5 months, so he invited her to his house for dinner one night because he was cooking for his family. She accepted his invitation. Pringle cooked chicken and eggplant curry, with the eggplant cut into small, barely noticeable pieces. He served it up, and after giving everyone their drinks, they began to eat their dinner. As they ate, Pringle's girlfriend stopped eating and stared at him. She asked, "Is there eggplant in this?" As soon as he said there was, she replied with, "What is wrong with you? I hate eggplant and you let me eat it? Ugh, it's like you don't even care about me." She then proceeded to cry, then called her parents to pick her up, all of this in front of his family. The next day, Pringle tried to patch things up, but she said that they were over. All over that eggplant.
When Legner's 21st birthday came around, he went to a store with his mum and uncle to pick up a cake. As his uncle was going through the self-checkout, Legner suddenly caught the strong scent of urine. He looked behind him without making it look too obvious and saw a homeless guy. The guy came up behind him and slowly put his hands near Legner's head. Then he jittered a bit, did a gesture like he was squeezing Legner's head before slowly pulling his hands away. Legner wasn't sure what to do, so he held in his tears and asked his uncle to leave.
By far, the stupidest thing I've ever done while drunk is gamble. My friends and I were hosting a poker night, and I'd never played poker before, but for some reason, with liquid confidence in my system, the equivalent to about an entire bottle of wine, I was incredibly confident that luck was on my side. Of course it was not, but, you know, alcohol makes you think it is. Needless to say, I ended up losing over $300 that night. So kids, don't drink and gamble, because you will lose. A lot. Probably.
When Melissa was in high school, she was walking to class when she heard loud dance music coming from the gymnasium. She and a few of her friends decided to investigate what was going on. They snuck into the doorway, only to find one of their teachers wearing an inflatable sumo suit. The teacher was dancing furiously to the music, all alone in the gym. Melissa and her friends tried to contain their laughter, but they ended up having to run out of the room so that the teacher didn't see them. Every time she had classes with that teacher after that, she just couldn't look at them the same way.
A few years ago, Andy Mason's dad was getting married to his new partner. Andy's future stepmom had 3 daughters to her previous marriage, and Andy was worried she wouldn't be accepted by her new family. Andy also didn't have a proper dress to wear to the wedding. She thought she would look like a total loser on the day, but to her surprise, her future stepsisters offered to take her out dress shopping. When Andy found something, they insisted on paying for it, and even bought her an entirely new outfit as a welcome to the family gift. Andy was so happy that her new stepsisters had welcomed her and accepted her into their family. She was secretly prepared to hate them.
One time at McDonald's, Zaragamba saw a drunk guy come in. Instead of going to the counter or the bathroom, he just went straight to the indoor playground. He climbed up to the top, dropped his beer down the slide, and passed out at the top. Everyone saw him drooling in his sleep at the top of the playground, so Zaragamba just left.
One time, while she was in junior high, Melissa decided to dress up for Halloween. So she put on cat ears, a tail, and a collar. While she walked down the hallway, a girl came up behind her and began to pet the side of Melissa's head. Oh, that always feels so nice. Which was shaved at the time. Then, the girl hooked a leash to Melissa's collar. Despite the weirdness, they became good friends.